Liz, regulations creating uncertainty for businesses in sectors from banking to biotech. TriNet leads the way in helping companies with the HR services they need, allowing clients to focus only on growing the business. Joining me right now is TriNet CEO Burton Goldfield. Burton, good to have you on the program. Thanks very much for joining us. John Hilsenrath's with us this morning. You've launched TriNet Life Sciences, focusing on biotech. Tell us what you're trying to do.
Correct. TriNet is a company that partners with small businesses to help them in the areas of payroll, benefits, and human resources. We believe it needs to be verticalized to be a true partner. And we've announced our TriNet Life Sciences product because of the vibrancy in small businesses as it relates to life sciences.
Why biotech?
Biotech is a phenomenal field today, whether you're talking about the medical devices, the wearable devices, as well as the pharmaceuticals. It's growing rapidly, and there's a lot of innovation. And we're helping companies that innovate because they're not interested in worrying about payroll or benefits or multi-state legal and regulatory issues.
So you have a window into their payroll numbers. Are these companies hiring? Is there employment showing up that isn't showing up in official numbers because these startups don't get captured?
Correct. So TriNet tracks the growth of these companies, and what we're seeing in the small businesses, and for us, we define them as companies from 1 to 500 employees, dramatic growth as they get FDA approvals, as they move forward with second-round funding, and we're there to help them hire great people and compete in a fairly competitive market for these great employees.
What's their burn rate in terms of going through cash?
You know, I don't have an insight into their burn rate, but what we are seeing is dramatic growth, and a lot of them are being tremendously successful. Companies like Onyx Life has grown to about 400 employees, building artificial heart valves to replace the bovine valves that are used today.
John, is that what you're seeing in the broad economy? I mean, we all know that small business is the area where the job creation is. But can you sort of identify where the growth is in the economy, whether it be small business or somewhere else right now, in an economy that obviously is very much mixed?
Well, I mean, I think one of the big worries right now is that we're not seeing a lot of innovation and startup activity, and you know what you're talking about is actually very encouraging, right? Because it doesn't show up in the official statistics. It certainly doesn't show up in the productivity or growth statistics, but it's possible that, you know, when new companies are created, they're just not getting picked up in the government data, so maybe it's showing up in your payroll data. So, you know, there's a lot of negative news out there. Maybe this is something to be a little bit encouraged about. But one of the things that I would ask is, there's a lot of talk that we hear about a bubble in venture capital, too much money chasing ideas that aren't going to play out in the end. Do you see that? Is that a risk that has to get managed?
I think all risks need to be managed. But I was at a SEMDA conference in Atlanta a week and a half ago with hundreds of small businesses, particularly in the medical device field. I was out in San Francisco at QB3, a room packed with entrepreneurs, looking at new ideas and passionately pursuing to solve problems. So what I see is tremendous amount of issues that need to be addressed, a reasonable amount of capital, as you say, but ultimately, I agree, some will succeed and some will fail. We're going to help the ones that succeed.
But didn't all these internet companies back in the late 1990s say they were going to solve all kinds of business problems? They were going to help us feed our pets and deliver groceries to our homes, and a lot of them ended up going nowhere.
You know what? I'm old enough to remember 1999, and the difference between feeding our pets and curing cancer, cleaning the waters, building new heart valves is markedly different. And I would say the technology that's accessible to these companies, the baseline technology, is simply better.
You know, I think John's hitting on an important point, though, because we continue to hear worries about a bubble in the private market.
Right.
And I guess putting aside the fact that, yeah, this is where the vibrancy is, and yeah, curing cancer is curing cancer. This is very different than something else. And maybe we are at a different place in terms of profitability today than we were in the 1990s. But that doesn't take away the question: have valuations become excessive? Are prices getting away from you?
I see a group of entrepreneurs that didn't live through 1999. I see a group of entrepreneurs that have the education and the motivation to solve these problems. So I am ultimately very, very optimistic. That's all I can say, Marie, is that I am optimistic that they will make the world a better place, that they will solve these problems.
Right.
And they're not discouraged by some of the things that I have seen in my lifetime. Most of them weren't around at that point.
I love it. Burton, good to have you on the show today. Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure.
Really great stuff. Burton Goldfield joining us, CEO of TriNet. John Hilsenrath, always phenomenally valuable to have you. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
John Hilsenrath from the Wall Street Journal.